Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast, coming at you on a Monday for you. It is Sunday at 9:17 p.m. for us. And I say us because, of course, I am joined by my co-host, the person who should evidently do every post-game live stream, because the only time the Knicks have won a game this week is when he filled in for me, because as you could probably hear, my voice has not been the strongest. Jeremy Cohen. Hello, Jeremy.
Hey, John. I think your voice sounds sexy. It's got that nice gruffness to it. You know, it's like when you wake up in the morning, but it just stays with you. It's hot. I love it.
You know, I've often dreamed of someone saying those exact words to me. You were not the person.
You know, sometimes your wishes come true and sometimes you wish it didn't.
Your nightmares.
Sorry, Dolores. I got there first. It's my man. Back off.
You're only my work wife, which that'll have to do. Anyway, so yeah, I was.
I like it's like a good way. So yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty confident. This whole season, as listeners could probably tell, because I'm not very good at hiding stuff, I have been not. I have not had an air of confidence about me on the whole this year. For whatever reason, funny enough, I had zero confidence going into the Milwaukee game. None whatsoever. I had a feeling, I was like, they're going to get killed tonight. And so then when they went down by 1 billion points in the first quarter, I'm like, see, I knew what I was talking about. Not so much. Coming into the Cavs game, I was like, you know what? I think Cleveland's going to play well, but the Knicks are going to come out and they're going to like remind us again who they were or who they are. And they're going to win this one, and it'll be a well-played game, but they'd win. And now, after Cleveland shot approximately 89% from three in the second half, not an exact number, but it's not that far off. The Knicks have just finished a week in which they went 1-3. So I should say an early congratulations. You took 2-2 in our predictions pool. I took 3-1. You win yet again. I guess I'll ask the same question I think I asked you 2 weeks ago when we had to re-record a pod, which is how much does how this week ended color your view of where things are at right now in Knicks land?
1-3 is not an optimal week for sure. I think there are some glaring deficiencies that the Knicks certainly need to address 100%. But listen, I'm trying. I want to say all of that because I acknowledge fully that there are problems, right? I mean, especially on the defensive side, the Knicks also took 133 threes this week over the 4 games. They hit on 30% of them. Mm-hmm. That's not good for a team that is supposed to be taking a lot of threes and then making a lot of threes. It's a make or miss league. And if you're not making them, then you're missing them. And if you're missing them, you're probably not going to win. So, you know, I want to keep all of that in mind, but I also, I want to put things into context because I just feel like from game to game, the highs feel so high and the lows feel so low. And I know I mentioned that on the post-game pod that I had done, but it really feels true every single game. You know, I mean, the Knicks win this game, right? And we're saying, hey, look at us. Knicks are 7-3. This is incredible. Like we are. It
wouldn't have mattered how they won it.
East. Right.
If they had won in any form or fashion,
sure,
we would be dancing in the streets right now.
Right. And instead it's like the Knicks are 6-4. How could the Knicks lose to the Cavs? And it's frustrating because again, 4 of the 6 wins to me have been against impressive teams. And it's unfortunate because the Knicks come back from a 21-point deficit against the Bucks and just shut them down defensively in the second half of that game and go on to win. And then you have this unfortunate game against Cleveland. And it feels like everything else the day before was seemingly wiped away. And I personally don't feel that way, right? Like I look at a 6-4 team that I still think there is certainly potential there. Of course, Kemba Walker did not play with this Cavs game. It's a back-to-back. So
we should say that.
Save him for Philadelphia, which makes a lot of sense. But it's hard for me to feel as terrible about this. And look, if you out there listening and you've woken up mad, or maybe wherever you are in another part of the world, and this has all been one terribly long day.
That would be rough.
It would be rough, 100%, to start your day out like this. And
that's not how you want to start your day.
Those of you who are probably in more the Australia portion of the world, my condolences. But I just, it's all about kind of like context, right? Like I look around the league and I think we could say that this Cavs team, this isn't like a Magic game, right? Like, yes, it's a Magic game in the sense of, you had someone who was like Ricky Rubio or Terrence Ross going off, and you just have to tip your cap and say, okay, that's not the single reason why the Knicks lost, but it is one of the biggest that it happened. And that's certainly the case. But again, it's hard not to look at some of the very good teams in the East, right? Like Atlanta, Milwaukee, Boston. As of right now, they are all 4-6. And I guarantee you that some of their fans are really going crazy, and they should be, because when Trae Young says we feel like we're playing like the regular season doesn't matter, when they blow double-digit lead to a team like Phoenix, which good, mind you, of course, but Ayton wasn't playing. The Bucks, who are continuously losing at home. The Celtics, who are just, they can't get it together. They said things in-house that should have stayed, or they said things that should have been in-house that were not, losing on a dagger to Luka. All of these things that, the Hornets, I think, have lost 3 games in a row.
And one of the few teams that have a worse defense than the Knicks. Yes.
Right. So I guess it's the sort of thing where, like, yes, a 1-3 week is bad. There are things that need to be worked on, but it's also like, it can be worse, and it is worse for other teams out there. But you know what? For those teams, it's not too late for them to turn things around. And for the Knicks, it's not too late for them to do the same thing. And so we're now 10 games in, right? Because I also, again, I don't want to say the expectations are obviously different than they were 2 years ago, but I just can't help but think back to 2 years ago when the Knicks lost a Sunday night game to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And you had Steve Mills and Scott Perry be forced into a press conference. I think it might have even been after 10 games, possibly.
They were 2-8 after 10 games.
They're 2-8 after 10 games, and a loss to the Cavs.
Never forget that night as long as I live.
And we are now talking about a 6-4 team that just had their 4th loss of the season to the Cavs on a Sunday evening game. And again, it's just like, I know that the expectations now are different from then, but it is very hard for me to be as upset with the long-term view or what's everything going on. I was upset with the game. Of course, there are shots that it felt like, like you see Evan Mobley, who's hitting 15% of his threes this year, and he goes 2 for 4. And that's incredibly frustrating. You see him drive to the paint and score at will. You see Ricky Rubio go off like you saw with Miles Turner, all these little things that eat at you. But I can't hit the panic button yet. Personally, I can't do it.
No, I don't. Look, I'm not hitting the panic button. I mean, the notion that we would associate a winning record with the phrase panic button with this franchise is in and of itself a sign of how far things have come. I mean, look, there are two big red flag issues you have in the NBA. Do you have a talent problem, and do you have a culture problem? The Knicks don't have a talent problem. They don't have optimal talent. They don't have superstar talent. And they don't have enough star level talent. But I don't think they have a talent problem to the point that this team can't accomplish the goals that it set out to accomplish this year, which are win, more games than you lose, get in the playoffs, maybe win a first round series, give a team a run in the first round, make a better showing than you made last year. Maybe screw around, get close to 50 wins if you have a really good year, if you get lucky in a few areas. Maybe you do end up winning the first round series, whatever. They're not trying to win a championship this year. They have enough talent to accomplish the goals that they have set out for. I also do not believe that they have a culture problem. I think, you referenced in our text conversation before, RJ Barrett had a nice Q&A today. I think it was with Steve Serby of the Post. And there were a few good lines from that. But one of the things I took from it is, and this is not the first time we've heard somebody say this. I think RJ said it before. He said there are no egos on this team. And I don't believe there are any egos on this team. I really do believe this is a group of guys who wants to win, and their priority is winning, and Tibbs has them focused and in the right direction on that. I think, and the problem, and Julius Randle said it after the game, and Tibbs said it after the game, and they've said similar things after recent games. And this is where the closest your hand is going to get to the panic button, I think this is in this category, is the defensive, that extra something, the extra something that made us all fall in love with this team last year. That has not been there, not for 48 minutes. It was there for most of the last three quarters against Milwaukee. It was there for the last probably 15, 20 minutes tonight against Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something about that. When the second unit came in, and we'll talk about that. It has been there for segments of other games. But for the most part, the games that they've lost, the Raptors game, the Pacers game, for the majority of this game, that's what's been missing. And everybody knows that's what's been missing. There's no misconception about what's been missing. The offense is fine even after this game. They're still a top. What are they? A top? Yes, they're still the fourth best offense in the league, even after this game, and by a comfortable margin. The offense is not the problem. The defense is the problem. They're the 27th ranked defense. I just want to go back quickly to a point you made before about the 3-point shooting. In the last four games, the Knicks, as you said, have hit 30% from three. That is the fourth worst mark in the league. So to me, it says something that they actually are still the fourth ranked offense in the league, even though for essentially now half the season, they have been one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league, which is, I think I'm taking that as a good sign. But you could certainly take that either way. So to me, the question at this point is, okay, we know what the issue is. It's not an issue that can't be solved. It's just a matter of how far does this get? Because if this is a thing that they solve for the most part for good at some point in the next week or 2 weeks, then that's okay. We'll look back on this and be like, yeah, it was understandable. Last season was magical. You brought in new talent. Takes a while to kind of get everybody back on their toes for 48 minutes. Or is this a season long thing? And are we going to be sitting here in March and being like, wow, the Knicks are 23rd in defense? That's not something we saw coming. And that's the part that I think any Knicks fan who is nervous and who is like, and there are other issues that I'm sure, we'll get into them. Who is kind of maybe being like, nervous. I think that was what I would be focused on.
Yeah. I think one of the things that resonated as well was after the game, Julius Randle, he said, and this is from Ian Begley tweeting, Julius Randle cited energy, fight, and will when asked about New York Knicks defensive shortcomings after loss to Cleveland. Randle said the Knicks might not have proper edge coming into games. Randle said, I'll take accountability. I've got to be better to help team play with an edge.
Yes.
That goes hand in hand with what RJ said about the lack of egos, as you mentioned. And it goes to show that, Randle's acutely aware of what needs to be worked on. I'm sure his mentions say as such. I'm sure he can hear it. I think people probably tell him. I think he also knows it himself that maybe commit more. And again, I think it's just, we each individually hold the team to our own standards, and that's neither right or wrong. It's like, if there's a collective point, like for me, as long as the Knicks hit the over where I did 43, I'm happy. I'll be happier from a less selfish or self-involved reason if they, can do better in the first round. Certainly, again, as you said, maybe win a playoff series. But, I know that the schedule is a little bit tougher moving forward. But as we've talked about, if it's playing down teams, that's the problem. And playing up to teams is fine. Then you would hope that playing up to teams is going to continue to work out. So it also seemed like there were things within the game that people were concerned about that certainly weren't as problematic. Like Immanuel Quickley, he can hit shots. He's just a slow start to the season.
We're going to talk about Immanuel Quickley.
Yeah. Now or
well, actually, no. Last thing before we move on to our giving out our game balls for the week, I do just want to say, briefly. So there was a clip going around. I don't know if you saw it of the Michael Porter Jr. missed shot and then slumped shoulders and like didn't get back on defense. Like, I feel like you can tell when you watch a team play and like there are certain guys do certain things where you're like, oh shit, there's issues going on. And I don't feel that way watching this team. I know they gave up 126 points to Cleveland, but I just looked it up right before we started. Cleveland shot 13 of 18 from 3 in the second half. Ricky Rubio had a game that Ricky Rubio, if you gave him, shout out to the Eternal Serum, and he could live forever just as he is right now. He could play 100,000 more basketball games. He will never have a shooting night like he had tonight. Like, I do not feel that the Knicks defense has been bad. It has not been good. I do not feel like it has been where you watch and you're like, oh, they're not trying. It's not that they're not trying. There's an edge missing, and that's why I appreciated Julius using that word. But here's the thing, and maybe this is a theme that's going to come up at some point. With the league where it is right now, and in particular where the Eastern Conference where it is right now, if you are not playing with that edge, you are not going to win. And that is, unless you're playing one of a couple teams, and we lost one of those teams already. So, maybe even that's incorrect. Okay. Anything else before we give out our game balls for the week?
I guess just very quickly, the Utah Jazz lost to the Magic. The Knicks and the Jazz are built very similarly. It happens. Yeah. They're victims too.
They're the East. I want to say the East is big, man. Cleveland's big, man. Let me tell you,
it's big. And they were missing Lowry marketing.
And they're missing Kevin Love.
Lowry marketing at the 3. Love Clyde. He's the best.
Yes, there you go. Okay, game balls. So again, there's a segment we introduced last week. I think it was our first one, where we want to highlight or give credit to somebody for their performance or analysis this week. We have a few different candidates. This is a little bit tough because the guy who was probably in the lead for this, I won't say any names, going into Sunday night's game, had easily his worst game of the year. So I don't know what we do with that. I kind of want you to go first, so the ball's not in my court. Unless you want to, if you want to toss it to me, you can toss it to me.
No, I'll toss it back to you.
You're going to toss it back to me.
Well, you went first last time, so I'll let you go first this time because you don't want to go first.
Okay. So look, recency bias. I'm giving my game ball to Immanuel Quickley. And I'm giving my game ball to Immanuel Quickley. Yes, I'm giving my game ball to Immanuel Quickley because the wise reigning NBA coach of the year has often been quoted as saying, you don't have to shoot well to play well. And Immanuel Quickley has shot as he has been by some metrics in terms of like, if you account for like volume and like guys who actually take enough shots, he's probably been the worst shooter in the NBA. Certainly going into the Milwaukee game. The Milwaukee game, I think he was 4 for 9 tonight. I don't know what his exact line was. I don't really care what his line was because he finally hit shots. I have it here. He was 3 for 8. So again, doesn't sound great, but if you watch the game, you knew it was a little bit different than that. He has not let his shooting struggles affect his ability to impact the game in other ways one bit. And I thought his defense was part of it. Was the whole second unit's defense that changed the game in Milwaukee. And obviously someone else was more responsible for their win in Milwaukee, but I thought Quickley's defense was a massive part of it. Hit a big 3 at the end of the third quarter to keep momentum going. And then tonight he was the best player on the team against Cleveland. And he has just clearly improved in every area of the game. And he's showing that every minute that he's on the court, the shots just haven't really been falling. And then a couple are starting to fall. So I'm very high on Immanuel Quickley. And just because of all the people who were like, shoot him to the moon after 7 bad games shooting wise, he gets my game ball for the week.
No, I do agree with you in the sense that Immanuel Quickley, just because he wasn't shooting, it didn't mean he wasn't contributing. I thought his defense this past week has been fantastic. And the passing's been there, the
improved
very much so. That second unit looked great. He looked great. I mean, that's the thing. Like this is why plus minus to me are so just not accurate. He's a -4. Like if you watch Immanuel Quickley play this game, you wouldn't think he was a negative on the floor. But no, I hear you. I think he was good all week. Derrick Rose struggled earlier in the week. I think if not for the sensational play in Milwaukee, we could be looking at the Knicks having an 0-4 week. Doesn't look pretty, but I know. I know. So that would have been bad. I'm going to give Derrick honorable mention, but I'm going to have to go with RJ Barrett because if we're talking about the full week, this of course was, as you said, I think the worst game of RJ's young season.
You should say his stat line against Cleveland: 3 of 13. He missed all 6 from deep. Had 4 turnovers and 6 points and 1 assist. So not a great game.
It wasn't. 3 of the 4 games that RJ played, he did not shoot well at all. There was one game in particular was explosive, and of course last week. But it's there. You can see it coming. It's just he doesn't need to carry the Knicks every night, but he's finding ways. Of course, tonight's game was certainly more unfortunate, but what he's been able to do in terms of pushing the pace, in terms of his shooting, the pull-up shooting, it's not quite there yet, but the fact that it was practically non-existent, or it felt like it was non-existent last season, he's letting them fly. He needs to hit more, 100%, but there's proof that the trajectory is getting better, and he's 21 years old.
Can I just say, I'd be more worried if he wasn't taking them. Yeah. I love the fact that he's taking them. And that's why before the season, I was like, you know what? I bet you he shoots worse from 3 this year because he tries more of these, as he should. That's what he should be doing.
Yeah. And, as of around right now, he's a little bit worse than where he was last year. Last year was a 40% shooter from 3. Yeah. So things are going nicely for him. And it's just fun to see it click with a young player, because when's the last time that we really saw a young player like this come along? I mean, I don't even know if I have ever seen that on the Knicks, considering how the Charlie Ward curse has existed since 1999. So, the ability to see, I mean, yes, you could say Mitchell Robinson, but it's not the same.
No, I mean, Porzingis is the only guy, and I don't feel like Porzingis consistently elevated and took another step and then another step and another step. He would take a step and then he'd plateau and then he'd go back a little bit. It's like, that's how it was
hurt. Yeah. There's, I agree. I completely erased Porzingis's existence from my mind, but no, even still, I just, it's not quite the same for me. And so it's just a joy to be able to feel like, I think that's the other thing, right? The more Zen-like approach I take is, I want the Knicks to obviously win right now. They need to improve. They should improve. They're a better team than how they're playing games like this past week. But it's also just like, okay, if RJ Barrett is the present and the future, and he's 21 years old, there's time. It's not like we have to do this right now. It's not like the Bulls, right? Where maybe the window's a little bit shorter there. There's a very lengthy period of time. Like when you see Obi Toppin doing better than expected, Immanuel Quickley still stepping up. You're seeing Quentin Grimes. I thought that outside of course, the air ball, it seemed like things were starting to work nicely for him. And, right. And it's just few moments in your rookie years that kind of you piece together and grow from there. And I look at the youth of the team and the mixture of veterans and talent that they have as well. And it's just like, if you're going to focus on the young guys, like look at a place like Orlando where they're 3-8 and they've got all this young talent and they're not good. And that's fine because that's not their goal. But if you look around the league, how many players are looking like RJ Barrett is, and they're on good teams and they're his age? There aren't a lot.
It's not
maybe Tyler Herro. And again, Tyler Herro is not better to me than RJ Barrett.
Well, he doesn't defend like RJ Barrett, and I don't think he has the ceiling, quite frankly. His shot making has more of a flair to it, which is why you're going to see the highlights.
Good player for sure.
Very good. Very good player. He's having an excellent year. The only other thing I want to say about RJ is, and I've mentioned this recently also, is the thing that would get me more than the good looks at the rim that just missed, which he had a few of tonight. The thing that would get me were the 2, 3, 4 looks at the rim, or like 4 shots at or around the rim that I'm like, man, that's just an ugly shot. And it felt like he would take a couple at least of them every game last year. I feel like if I had to count them on one hand this year, I feel like I'd have fingers left over. It just feels like he's completely eliminated those ugly shots from his diet. And maybe it's because he's just turned them into good looks because he's worked on his moves, getting to the basket, whatever it is. It's much better. They just didn't go down tonight. I don't really care. It sucks, obviously, because it contributed to the Knicks' loss, but I'm not worried about RJ. Okay. Detention. A player, coach, media personality, or other entity or entities, can be a group of people who we think. Now, we had some discussion about this last week. This is not solitary confinement. This is a learning tool. Right, Andrew?
Right,
it's a learning tool? Okay.
Yes.
So, maybe we go the Bart Simpson route, right? I will not do XYZ on the chalkboard 100 times. I don't know how many times you need to write that. Okay, I'm going to make you go first on this one because I just went first.
All right. I guess it's for me looking at the list that Andrew has prepared, and you could pick any good one. I've certainly talked about some of them before in this podcast, but I'm going to go with the fresher one, which is again the Knicks this past week faced players who just popped off. The scouting report is to leave Miles Turner open. You let him take that shot, and he was phenomenal when he did that. OG Anunoby, it seemed like there was great defense, even from Gary Trent Jr. as well. But they also played, I think, 38, 40 minutes of that game, some huge number where they were fantastic. I mean, there were times where OG Anunoby was guarded very heavily, and there's just better offense. Looking at Grayson Allen, he does have a very punchable face. He went a not so nice 6 from 9 from 3. Again, it was very disappointing to see him do anything good against the Knicks. And then you have Ricky Rubio just having the game of his life, who, thank God for that one heat check at the end of the game, he finishes 8 for 9 from 3. But again, like it's like a respect thing, because this is the thing. It's like the Knicks have a game plan in mind, whether it's the most solid or not, you could argue about it, but they went in with the right intentions. And it did not work out.
No, it did not work out. I mean,
and also think about it. For these 4 games, 2 of them, the Knicks were leading at halftime and they went on to lose both of them.
Were they winning 3 at half? No, that's right.
No, because they never led in Indiana, and
that's right. You're right.
They were still down. So, so again, it's like, and then you look at the Indiana and Milwaukee games. Like, do they need to be down? Are they the type of team that plays better when their back is against the wall early on? I mean, certainly later on, it doesn't work out because we've seen them blowing leads and then not coming back from them. So, again, it's not even detention at this point for those 4 or 5 players that I just mentioned, right? Like, if anything, it's kind of giving them a gold star and saying, nice job on this. But since we're, saying this from the Knicks perspective, I'll give detention to them for killing the Knicks because, but then there are other options on the board. Like, and John, if I'm stealing one of yours, then please tell me and I'll turn it over to you. But the 3-point shooting we talked about, it's 30% from 3 this week, 133 attempts. You can't win games like that when that's how your DNA is built. So when you mix those things together, it's a disaster. It can be a disaster. It's unfortunate, but that's
it is. It is a bit of a disaster when you shoot 30% from 3. I'm going to go in a different direction, and man, I don't want to get myself in trouble here. So I wrote before the season that. Like I guess I made some like preseason predictions in like certain categories, and I wrote one about the that is most likely to draw the fans' ire, the ire of the fans. And I was like thinking, is it Noel? I think that's who I landed on. Might it be Evan Fournier if he gets off to a cold start? Kemba Walker. I thought, because I figured Rose would be very good and Kemba might, it might be an adjustment. And I should have realized the obvious answer was staring me in the face the whole time. And it was always going to be Julius Randle. And that's because I knew, as everybody on this podcast knows, and everybody who listens to this podcast knows, I knew Obi Toppin was going to be good. I knew Obi Toppin was going to look fucking great in the minutes that he got. And Obi Toppin has looked fucking great in the minutes that he has received. He has been outstanding. He has done everything he's been asked to do. Beautiful finishes, has some nice pops on defense. So it was always going to be Julius, because unless he would have needed to come back and play as otherworldly as he played last year. And I don't know, maybe we should have realized that may not have been in the cards. That there was a possibility for him to take a half a step back and be closer to the player he was over the course of his career. Now, I think there's a chance he gets back to being the player he was for most of the last season. He's struggling right now. I think it's obvious he's struggling right now. He's in his head a little bit. It's kind of gone away a little bit, but it resurfaced a little bit this game. So, but my attention is going to go to, it seems like there is a contingent of people out there who after every loss are looking for ways to pin it on Julius. And tonight it was, how dare Tom Thibodeau put Julius Randle back in the fourth quarter for Obi Toppin. And look, Obi got 6 minutes to run from, he basically played the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. It was a good 6 minutes. Do I think if he finished the game, the Knicks would have won this game? Absolutely not. I don't think it would have made a difference. So I think Julius Randle lost the game for the Knicks? No, I do not think so. At some point, you have to show a certain modicum of faith in the guy who essentially changed your franchise a year ago. And, 8 or 9 or 10 or 15 or 20, even like so games for me is not the time to be like, you know what? I'm going to go with the kid to close out this big game. I just don't think we're there yet. And I feel like that could have really, really damaging repercussions on the locker room, on just the organizational, the bedrock of the culture that they built. And you want to tell me, well, if Julius is really the team leader, then he should be able to swallow it and be like, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. That's all well and good. That's very nice and sweet and comforting to say. It's just, that's not like, go find the player in the NBA who has accomplished what Julius just accomplished. And they would be like, yeah, no, that's totally fine. I'm cool with that. Give the kid my run. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, Julius has earned a very long leash, and he's not even playing that poorly. He's playing poorly for him based on what the standard he set last year was, but so that's kind of gotten to me a little bit. And I hope that subsides, and I hope it subsides because Julius plays so well that it's all going to make this, flitter away. But this is so funny. As I'm saying this, someone, I'm not going to say who it is, someone messaged me that I haven't talked to in a while. Tough game tonight. Obi needs to start, period.
Oh my God.
There is no more justifying here. I feel bad for this person that I'm reading this out loud. It is very obvious. He deserves to start. Tibbs has this all wrong. I don't care about his prior accolades. He is misreading the kid. Oh my God.
I think both statements can be true here, where it's
what the top that Obi Toppin needs to start over the guy who finished 8th in MVP for
that Obi Toppin should get more burn, and that Julius Randle should be closing out games.
Yeah, but more. Okay, so again, let's just be clear.
What I'm saying is, Obi Toppin playing more than 11 minutes. Like, again, I think if you give him 15 minutes and you still have Julius finishing out the game, because I'm with you, right? The whole mindset of like, yes, it's one thing to say like, hey, Julius, you're the leader, so you should know if there's no egos here that you can take a backseat every now and then. But if you are Tom Thibodeau, if you are the Knicks, you want the most battle-tested guys who are out there. You want the guys who can win games. The thing is, we don't have a lot of experience.
Like the guy who won a shit ton of games last year for you.
Right. And we don't have a lot of experience with Obi playing clutch time minutes down the stretch, right? There's some, but it's limited. Randle's certainly a more established player in that sense. And it's the same reason why last year, you and I talked about this, where it was like there's a technical foul and the Knicks got a free throw. And it was Julius Randle walking to the line and he took the shot. And I said, like, it's crazy to me how you have Immanuel Quickley on the floor and Julius Randle takes the free throw over him. And your response was like, yeah, because Julius is the leader, because he is the guy having the great season and deserves to take that shot. Similar can be said here, even if he's not playing up to the caliber that we hold him and that he holds himself. And I'm with you on that. I do think, yes, Obi was playing well. I can understand giving him a couple more minutes in the fourth quarter. But again, like the Knicks were also playing him so then they could get Randle in at the game later. Like if you're expecting Obi to play from, let's say, the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, all the way to the end of the fourth quarter, that's a long time for him to be in a game. And then that's a whole quarter where you are then sitting the best player on your team. It just doesn't feel like a decision that's made out of rational thinking. It feels like a very emotional desire that one might want. And it's, I also wonder how different is tonight's game. The bench played great, don't get me wrong, but how different is it when Kemba is starting and Rose is back in the role that he's playing in? It almost gives me memories.
We haven't even talked about Kemba sitting. Yeah, no, right, I mean, like, and that shouldn't be glossed over.
And again, to begin the fourth quarter, the Knicks were great and Rose was not on the floor. So it's not like they can't do it. However, he stabilizes that second unit. We saw it in the Bucks game. So if Kemba's out, then it's, someone needs to step up. And we saw this last season too. And it didn't really go that way. I can understand why people might want Deuce McBride to have gotten minutes tonight, but he's not going to run the offense. I can understand why people may have wanted more Quentin Grimes minutes, but he got them. He got some time and he did what was asked of him. And that's certainly important and something we'll keep in mind moving forward. If Kemba's out again, or if another player is injured in the rotation and there's room for him. But, there is something to be said of how the Knicks are down a man, and you could look at the Cavs and they could say, well, Lauri Markkanen is not with us. And I get it, but look, he's not running the offense. Derrick Rose, Kemba Walker, they are.
I think it's a good point about Kemba. I said at halftime I didn't understand why he only gave Obi 4 minutes of run in the first half. I stand by that. I thought he could have played a few more minutes. He was very good in the minutes he got. Randle's your all-star. Randle's your MVP candidate. Randle's your all-NBA guy. It's been 9 games, folks. I mean, come on. It's been 9 games.
It's been
10 games. Excuse me. 10
games.
If
it were 9 games, then I would agree with you, John. But the fact that it's 10,
you're right. It's the extra.
Done with.
It's the extra game. Hold on, before we get to our preseason predictions, I have to. This is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard anybody say. Good night.
To people listening, that was John replying to said message that he checked during the podcast about the message he read earlier with what he just said.
It was actually, it wasn't really that. Scarlet Ray woke up in the middle of the night and handed John a beautiful hand-drawn painting. And then he said what he just said, which
no, that's
rough.
Right. I feel like there's a reaction gift there from now on. Anytime we see a tweet we don't like, and it's just John going, "This is the stupidest fucking thing ever." Good night.
All right, predictions. So Jeremy, you're 2-0 to start the season. I am 0-2. This is obviously unfortunate because it means you get to pick first now this week, and I think I don't know. This might be actually tough.
I'm in a tougher spot than I think you are because I pick one and then you get the other one. So the opponents that the Knicks are facing, it is the Sixers, the Bucks, And then the Hornets, 2 of those games, the Sixers and the Hornets games, they are away games, and the Bucks game is at home. So, I mean, I think we can both agree that there are only 2 logical choices here that, well, I shouldn't say that because last week I said 2-2, you said 3-1, and they go.
I think there are 4 logical choices.
There are 4 possible choices. Maybe a 5th one if something happens to any of the games where they get postponed, which hopefully does not happen. But
hopefully it doesn't happen.
This is the world we live in. So this is the thing, like the Sixers have been red hot since the Knicks beat them, but the Knicks figured out a way to beat them. However, I mean, it's been a while since the Knicks have won in Philadelphia. Milwaukee again. How good is Giroux coming back? And now he got his feet wet. Is Brook Lopez coming back? They're on a nice little losing streak. The Hornets, are they going to have some magic in them? Feel like something always happens in Charlotte. I want to say 2-1.
I know you do.
I really do.
You're itching to say it.
I'm itching to say it because the idea of then it being what? I mean, this team's 6-4, right? So 8-5. It sounds a lot better than 7-6. But I'm going to take the risk. I got to go 1-2.
Okay.
I don't want to, believe me. I do not. But I just I think it gets a little bit worse before it gets better.
I would have taken 1 and 2.
Although, to be honest, if you would have taken 1 and 2, then it's possible 2 and 1 might win now. So,
I mean, I'm going to take 2 and 1.
Were you going to take 3 and 0 or 0 and 3?
I'm not taking 3 and 0.
Okay.
There's zero part of me that thinks 3 and 0 is happening. I'll say that. I'll take 2 and 1. I'll just leave it at that.
I hope you're right.
I agree with you. I think things are not necessarily here again. I think they could come out and they could play outstanding against Philadelphia, outstanding, and lose the game because it's in Philly. It's the second night of a back-to-back. And then it's Milwaukee at home. You just played Milwaukee. I think, honestly, of the 3 games, that might be the game I think I'm most confident in because I have a bad fucking feeling going into Charlotte against a team that still is putting up a ton of points. Their issue has obviously been defense. But like, I don't feel like the Knicks are getting stopped other than Toronto who really got into them. I don't feel like the Knicks are getting stopped on offense because of opposing defenses. I think when the Knicks are running into issues on offense, it's because the Knicks are stopping themselves on offense or the Knicks just aren't making shots. I don't feel like it's anything defenses are doing. So if you're telling me what's the worst matchup you can imagine for the Knicks right now, it's against a really, really good offense and a shitty defense. Or a bad matchup is against a great offense and a great defense. But a bad matchup against a middling team, that's the middling team that I don't want the Knicks facing right now. So that is why, I think you're very smart to go 1 and 2, but I will go 2 and 1.
Fair enough. I hope you win.
I hope I win too. I need a win.
The panic that will ensue if this team is under 500 when we record next Sunday.
Would not be great.
Would not great, Bob. If they're 6-7,
I mean, what they lose 5 of 6.
Well, no, they
were 5-3, and then they went to 5-7. They lost 4 straight. Then they won 2 straight.
They went out to 5-9.
There was 5-7 because then they won. I think it was a game in Golden State. I know it went from 5-3 to 5 and it might have got to 5-8 because 5-8 was the Cleveland game, the Friday night game where RJ had a kickball. Then we thought that it was going to be this is the RJ game, and then he dribbled it off of someone's foot.
No, Andrew, I'm looking at it.
It got to 5-9.
They were 5-3. They lost 5 games in a row.
So it was 5. So 5-8.
The last of those games. So 5-8. Yes. They were 5-8. So I had the 5 in a row in my head. Yeah.
And the last game was a Cleveland game.
The last game was the Cleveland game. That's correct.
Yeah.
But in the midst of that were 2 games where they got absolutely murdered, where they lost to Denver by 25. And then they lost to Charlotte. Oh my God, I remember that game. They played like shit that game by 21.
That was a Kevin Knox game. The Charlotte game. Yeah. Kevin Knox had like 5 threes in the second quarter and they never saw meaningful minutes the rest of the season.
And then was the Brooklyn game. They lost 116-109. That was like, that was a feel good loss, and then the Cleveland game was like, oh, this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I do want to say one thing about last season. I know that we can't just assume that this team can pull 9-game winning streaks and 12 of 13 out of their hat.
It's a good assumption.
Willy-nilly. But I was looking at how the team was doing last year. And I think it's very easy to forget, because I certainly did, that the Knicks were almost at the 75% mark of the NBA season, and they were still under 500.
Yeah. But we also shouldn't compare this team to that team. This team is more talented than that team.
100%. And again, that's why I'm saying like it shouldn't, that shouldn't be the, like, hey, at least this is. But the point being, it's that it's not too late. It's
I know,
really
but they're
too late until it is too late. And then when it's too late, we'll know when it is. But we're nowhere near that point.
I understand that. I understand everything. And look, I don't want to go back on anything we said in this episode, but the frustrating part is that they're 6-4, and you feel watching this Cleveland game. You felt watching the Toronto game. The Orlando game. I don't even know what the fuck you do with the Orlando game. And what was the other one? Like the Pacers, like they're losing these games where you're like, not to say that this team should be 9-0. They should not be, or 8-1 or 7. Like you are what your record says you are. They are what they should be. But the ways it's the ways they're losing the games, and that it goes without saying. I know we've danced around it. And last season, what made it easier to stomach early on is when they lost because they weren't very good, and they got better after they got Derrick Rose, and then like some guys started finding themselves. RJ started in that. Don't forget, RJ started in that hellacious shooting slump after the first game in Indiana. He couldn't hit the far side of a barn for 10 games. So like there were reasons why they were bad. Guys were injured. Burks was out for a while. Like Knox was getting rotation minutes and stuff like that. So this team has been healthy other than tonight. When Kemba sat out. So I don't know. I really hope they don't go 0-3. That would be bad. Part of me would actually sign for 1 and 2. Okay. Andrew, anything from you before we get out of here?
I have one thing, and it's not Knicks related, but it is Blue Wire related. Okay. Jeremy might know what I'm talking about, but I'm almost positive John won't. Are you aware of the rumor surrounding Cal Ripken Jr. and Kevin Costner?
I am indeed.
Jeremy is. John's giving me a face of I have 5 heads.
I don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about.
Okay, so let me play real dumb with John. You know who Cal Ripken is, right? Okay, he's just gave me the look of go fuck myself now. Okay, so Cal Ripken obviously famous for the Iron Man streak of passing Lou Gehrig, which broke in 95, which he's credited a lot with bringing baseball back. It is a very heroic moment when Cal Ripken broke Lou Gehrig's streak. In 1997, there was a game against the Mariners, the Orioles against the Mariners in Baltimore, that all of a sudden a whole tower of lights malfunctioned and the game had to be postponed. And the rumor is that Cal Ripken Jr. caught Kevin Costner in bed with his wife and was either like hurt because he just tried to fight Kevin Costner, or in police custody. And he called the Orioles and said, delay the game somehow so that way my streak continues. And they both denied it. And like years, like, and Snopes did a investigation in 2001 to try and disprove all of it. Well, 2 Blue Wire podcasters, I want to give them credit, Sam Dingman and Mac Montandon, we're at a birthday party maybe a year or so ago. I guess probably before COVID, but they heard from people working in the Baltimore Police Department at the time that, yes, this is absolutely true. And Blue Wire put some money behind it. And now there's a podcast on Blue Wire called The Rumor that breaks down whether or not this thing was true. And I'm 3 episodes in and it is captivating. Like all the true crime stuff that you guys listen to, if you're into that, this is for you if you're a baseball fan. And Jeremy, I'm now not only convinced this happened, but I think we should nullify the streak and say that Lou Gehrig is actually the Iron Man. And if we're really being conspiratorial, I think Kyrie did steroids, and that's why people. That's how he was able to play so many games in a row. Anyway,
wasn't he the first player to get in unanimously?
No, Mariano did.
Yeah, it was Mariano.
Oh, that's right. Someone didn't vote for Cal?
Someone didn't vote for Jeter. Jeter, one person didn't vote for Jeter. 3 people didn't vote for Ken Griffey. And then Tom Seaver's the next highest.
I thought Cal was up there. I guess not.
Cal had like 95% of the vote. Back then, It was still popular. Like, oh, it's your first ballot. I'm not putting you in because Joe DiMaggio was first ballot, didn't make it on his first ballot. So neither should anybody.
All right.
But all those guys have lost their votes because, old.
Got it.
Point is, this is the shit I live for, the conspiracy stuff actually being deep dove. And it's actually like a good commentary on how we idolize athletes and heroes.
That was right around Waterworld, right?
I think so. Waterworld's
1995.
Yes. Yeah. So it's 2 years later.
I mean, look, that was going to be a big movie. It was okay. It wasn't great.
If I'm thinking of a 90s,
I can see maybe she was just a big fan of Waterworld.
If I was a mid-90s, if I was thinking of a mid-90s Kevin Costner movie, I would go Dances with Wolves. As far as
that was 2 years earlier, though.
Right?
Well, that was not 2 years older. That was 4 years earlier. Excuse me.
Because that beat Goodfellas.
See, this is where my mind goes. Where I know that obviously it was filmed in the 80s with Field of Dreams, but like some innuendo, like. If you build it
easy.
And then Cal Ripken walks in on Kevin Costner, of course. Something along those lines. So I'll let you all fill in the blank there.
Oh, man. What Knicks podcast like that? What's the event? It's the frozen envelope, right?
It's the only thing.
If somebody was like, yeah, it's true. And then there was a deep dive podcast on whether or not the 85 lottery was rigged.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the only one.
And if it was, I really don't care.
I absolutely think it was.
Probably was. And
you got a title out of it.
Yeah.
But fair. But as far as the curiosity, I absolutely think Stern was like, I would like my biggest asset to go to New York City because I have New York and LA and Boston battling. It's time to get New York City involved in this.
Perhaps. That'll be a podcast for another day. For right now, though, we're going to sign off. Jeremy, thank you. Of
course, John.
Andrew, thank you.
You're welcome, John. Get well soon, by the way. Thank you for toughing it out the last couple of days.
Yeah, of course.
Again, also find a way to keep that voice.
I'm going to try. It sounds better than it did. And everybody out there, thank you for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We'll be back with you with more funny games very soon. Until next time, be well, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.